past all of them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Hello everybody and welcome to the final round of the World Sportscar Championship here at the end of 2023. This is the sixth and final round of what is going to end up being a 9-hour season here for round 6. We have travelled to the World Centre of Racing and the high banks of Daytona for what's surely set to be a dramatic finale. Still 4 classes and 4 championships to decide on the final day, of course, and they all have the great potential of changing hands tonight as well. Hello everybody, welcome to RaceSpotTV. My name is Ewan O'Leary. I'm alongside Connery Maddock for this final round of the season, and we're very excited to bring this one to you as we're getting towards the end of qualifying. Let's show you where we stand in those championships. Jürgen Frank has the highest or biggest advantage, I should say, of any championship leader with 21 points over Nicholas Heider. In second, it's Nathan Moore, who is the only other driver capable of winning the championship tonight. Thomas King and Piers Pryor will probably fight with Mathieu Thornton for 4th place in the standings, with Daniel Sedley in 7th, ahead of Gurgley Conchabo, Christoph Bates and Stuart Bickley rounding out the top 10 drivers in LMP3 Pro. In LMP3 it's a lot closer. Just 6 points separate Ben Gregory and Joost Boymeister. It's Mac Farquhar who is the only other realistic contender, although Silas Craig-Brolick can still win, along with the likes of Toby Ward and Denise Pope. Paul Joseph Klist is in 7th, ahead of John Roberts. Then we've got Andy Jones and Nicholas Salapoutis to round out the top 10 in LMP3 AM. In GT4 Pro, there's 17 points between Eric Grover and Richard Sibler, with Michael Huffledson, Andy Shield, Christopher Smith, all capable, although only mathematically, of winning the title as well. Matthew Crisp is only 6th, ahead of Guy Edwards, who will look to hold off Jack Osborne today for that 7th place. Paul Zanetacci is in 9th place, ahead of Jonathan Walker, to round off the GT4 Pros. And then it's the GT4 AMs, a really close title fight here and a very exciting one, I'm sure, tonight. Lee Berridge versus Josh Boot. Only 4 points separate them, with Howard Hassan, Mark Collicutt only 15 points separate all of those as well. Paul Smith has a outside chance as well, and we'll be unbiasedly cheering him on the RaceSpotTV. Adam Locke tied with him, with Jack Wilkins only a point behind. Matti Well, Angelos Natafas and Fliddy Johansson round out the top 10 in GT4 AM as well. Simon C lead the way in the points ahead of the Pure Sims Esports team. These are the team's points, of course. 5 points separate those with AI Race Summies, DCW Racing in third. GTA Red and SimRC.de are tied for fourth, with AM Racing Alcantech in sixth. Freem UK 7th, only a couple of points ahead of Pure Sims with World Sim Racing, RD Sim Sport, and then GTA Pink. It's all very close there. However, SimRC and Pure Sims are likely to battle that one out for the team standings at the end of the season. Well, we're coming towards the end of qualifying. Welcome on, one and all. Welcome in, Connor, as well. Good to have you alongside me again for this final round of the championship. It's the title decider, and as we've just seen, all 4 of those championships could change hands tonight, and there's realistic hopes for those behind that they may well change hands too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely all to play for with for a few of our championships, and of course, not even necessarily the championship win. There will be drivers a little bit further down the order in each grouping, which will want to be getting up to second place, up to third place, or wherever their particular battle in the championship lies. There are goals to try to strive for here today in the final round of the season. Can't wait for it.
Just a few seconds remaining in qualifying. We can tell you that Eric Grove has picked up the 2 points for the fastest qualifying lap in GT4, and for LMP3 it was actually Adam State who took pole, so no points go to the championship leaders. 3 points available for the fastest lap, but that's for each class, so don't be expecting it to be one for Pro, one for AM. It's for an overall, and in fact no AM drivers who are championship contenders have picked up any bonus points throughout the season so far in either GT4 or LMP3. In fact, that goes throughout the entirety of the field. The bonus points have all gone to pro drivers over the course of this season. This is, of course, the final race of the season, and we've got an hour and a half rounds here at Daytona. Not expecting it to be a fuel strenuous race here, Connie, although if any circuit is going to bite you in terms of fuel, then it is Daytona.
Absolutely is. Always a concern, both in the real world and in the virtual. And with the limited fuel tanks that these guys run in this series, it's going to be another big talking point as Paul Smith brings it down towards the pit lane. Like you said, with that outside chance at the GT4 Championship, G4 AM Championship there for Paul Smith. But he needs a lot of things going right in this particular race if he's going to have any chance at getting any sort of, further up the points, shall we say. But qualifying is drawing itself to a close. There's not actually anyone on a lap here at the moment, Ewan, so everyone's just on their cool-down period. We've got about a minute before we head and do the gridding procedure for our final race of the season.
Yeah, 34 should be making their way out onto the circuit, and we'll go through the grid as soon as we can, but we're waiting for the order to come through first. We need qualifying to end before we can go any further, so we'll wait for that, and then we'll get underway for a final hour and a half. As we just said, it's expected to be a 2-stop race here. There were some concerns at Le Mans earlier on in the season that maybe that could turn into a 3-stop, so we just extended the fuel limit ever so slightly further out, not to suggest that it could end up being a 1-stop, which would be a little bit one-dimensional, take something a little bit away from the race. But instead, we've stuck with the 2, but made absolutely sure that you can make it. And in fact, it is actually mandatory to do 2 pit stops anyway, so maybe it would have been interesting to allow them to play around with the fuel a little bit and pit at strange times, but we've got what we've got. Hello to everybody who's tuned in here this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you're watching, on RaceSpotTV. Good to have you along with us for the ride, and it is going to be a complicated one. Jürgen Frank has got the biggest championship lead, and expecting him to have a good run here tonight. He only needs to finish inside the top 11 overall in LMP3 and he will be crowned champion. Eric Grove is in a relatively similar situation. Now he's 19 points clear of the rest of the field. He only needs a top 10. Let's have a look at the drivers' standings in qualifying though, and the starting grid for the final race of the season. It's Adam State and Jürgen Frank, only separated by 14 thousandths, who are on the front row together. Nathan Moore and Nicholas Hyder are on row 2. Thomas King and Daniel Sesley nestle themselves just within a second of Adam State's pole time at 1:41.5. The marker post for everyone else to beat in LMP3 Pro. Let's go further down to some of the others. Ben Gregory there, pick him out in the AM car. He's second in that class with Christoph Fates in 9th. Sophia Ripath will share the 4th row with him. Silas Krug Rolik will be alongside you. Boomeister in an all AM row 6. Then it will be John Robertson, Toby Ward ahead of Denise Pope to round out the LMP3s. Eric Grove gets pole for the GT4 Pros ahead of his championship rival Andy Shield. Then it's Michael Hafliderson, or one of his championship rivals, I should say. Anyway, Michael Hafliderson is next ahead of the likes of Josh Boot, who's qualified first in AM. Richard Simner, the closest championship rival in GT4 Pro, is next ahead of Jack Osborne and Matthew Crisp on row 11. Chris Smith and Lee Berridge are on row 12 ahead of Howard Hassan and Jack Wilkins. Evangelos Natafas is alongside Caleb Ruddick with Philip Bjork and RaceSpotTV and Paul Smith rounding out the top 30. Then we've got Adam Locke, who's quite a long way back with Lydia Hansen, Mark Collicutt and maybe Paul Clist, although he didn't set a time, so wondering whether we are going to get our final of the LMP3s out there onto the racing surface or not. There they are on the run up towards the bus stop chicane, the Le Mans chicane as it's meant to be called these days, but we don't generally. It's a nicely formed grid of 34. Hopefully they all get out there and hopefully they all survive turn 1. I was saying to you before the broadcast, Connery, that maybe this was going to be a little bit cleaner because we've got slightly less cars. Daytona is always a dangerous circuit, but it's the final round of the season and we've not got quite the numbers that we had for the first round, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how this one goes. Starts at Daytona can be a little bit sketchy. Such a sketchy turn number 1 here at this circuit as you try and transition off of that banking down in towards the first complex of things. So keep an eye on that as a trouble zone for this particular start. As you can see, the field immediately getting itself spread out as is custom here between the two classes, the prototypes and the GT4s. But we are just moments away from getting this one underway.
Up on the banking through NASCAR 3 and 4. And I'm sure the banking is going to play a big role in the outcome of tonight's race. The slipstream, the draft, whatever you want to call it, is going to be very, very key around here. And staying within it is going to be a challenge, but one that has to be accepted and has to be successfully negotiated as well over the course of the day. There are the LMP3s making their way towards the line. Unfortunately, only 15 of them. Paul Joseph Clist not able to get onto the grid by the looks of things. So we are going to get 15 LMP3s get us underway for this final race at Daytona. It's the championship finale, the deciding race in the World Sports Car Championship. Adam State in control of the field, and we go green. It's a monster start in the background from somebody, and that is absolutely fantastic. If it's not a jump start, I fear slightly that it may be, but if it's just a good one, then it's fantastic. Into turn 1, a couple of lockups and crash. Oh dear, one of the front bumpers has come off of one of the LMP3s, I'm afraid. This is why we have the class split, because it's only the LMP3s have gotten involved in it, because the GT4s are still waiting to start their race.
Yeah, absolutely. GT4s are just coming to the line now. A bit of a mess there in our prototype class to start this one off. It's not what you like to see as our GT4 race is about to get itself started now. Eric Grove on pole position for this one. Remember, Andy Shield on the outside there of the banking has to fall in behind pretty much immediately here, coming up towards the start. As is it more of an orderly affair for GT4 through turn 1? I think it may be, although I hope I'm not speaking too soon. At least they're through the first turn without any issues.
They are through the first turn, which is more than can be said for the LMP3s, and there's some championship contenders involved as well. Mac McFarquhar in the AM category, unfortunately, has dropped down to 15th place, and he is an AM championship contender. He started the day only 14 points behind Ben Gregory, and surely with this early crash, it's going to be over for him. Caleb Ruddick has gone for a spin at in GT4 as well. That's in the AM class. He's dropped down to the very back of the entire field, but he is the only driver to have had issues issues through the first sector. Out onto the banking go the LMP Freeze, and it's very much like we saw in qualifying. Adam State out front with Jürgen Frank getting towed along in second.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see these two guys duel at the front as we're going to come across the start-finish line for the second time in this race, as it's Jürgen Frank getting himself ahead now in our SMRC car. Adam State having to fall behind. I don't think this is going to be the end of that, of course. I get the feeling that they'll just try and slingshot off of each other and try and build a gap to those behind.
And they've certainly built a gap right now. Third place is Ben Gregory, by the way. He's got quite a gap over his AM rivals. His nearest rival in the championship is Just Boemeister, and he is third in the AM race. But at the moment, 6 places separate them in standings overall in LMP3. Side by side around the left-hander there at turn 4 for a couple of the LMP3s. On the inside there is the GTA red car of Thomas King. He stays ahead of Nicholas Hyder on the outside line there, and coming through as well is the likes of Sophia Ripath, and there goes Nicholas Hyder off the road on the way in towards the way onto the banking. It's through turn 6. He's just got tipped around and he goes further back in the LMP3 field now.
Yep, indeed. That's not what you're wanting to be seeing off the start. We've had a big incident in GT4s as well. I think that was coming up towards the first corner, as we see a recovering Josh Boots now getting himself back going here. So a couple of incidents here on the start. We can maybe take a little bit of a look back at exactly what happened off of the green flag, at least with Mac Farquhar and others. Yeah, there's a lot to recap here.
There is. All 4 championship leaders currently lead the way, and Mac Farquhar was involved here on the inside. It's just one of the cars clipping on the inside there. I think that is Mac himself who clips the inside wall, and unfortunately gets collected by a few drivers out who were just trying to make their way through turn 1. So it's a bit of a misjudgment there from Mac, and he's dropped down to the very back of the field. Front damage on that car as well, suspension damage from the looks of things as well. This is in GT4 AM. Josh Boot was involved with the leaders at the time, but there's a big slow up in front of him. He heads down the inside, sort of. He hits the rear end of a Mercedes, and everybody else gets through. Oh, well, I say everybody. Nearly everybody. One of the Mercedes just clipped Josh on his way past, but Josh Boot really needed a good performance today. He starts today 4 points behind Lee Berridge. He was in a good position in qualifying, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Down into 32nd overall, and you have to say that, you know, I have to remind everyone, if you've not been watching this series over the rounds that we've run up until this point, then you might not be familiar with the fact that every single one of the LMP3s are going for the same points, no matter if they're in Pro or if they're in AM. If an AM driver overtakes a Pro driver, they are still gaining points. It's the same in GT4s as well. So when you fall back to the field like that, you're not just losing points based off of losing positions to people in your own subcategory, shall we say. You're losing a whole bunch of points to the entire sort of car class as well. So that's a sort of a double whammy there.
Yeah, it is. Evangelos Natafas just got into the lead of GT4 AM. That was a change there with Lee Berridge, who was leading at the time. There they are, pretty close to one another, it has to be said. One of the RD SimSport BMWs right in there as well at the moment, of Chris Smith, who must have followed his way through in the first of the BMWs. Then in the second one is Lee Berridge, who does still hold on to the championship lead as things stand. His closest rivals are the likes of Josh Boot, Howard Hassan, Mark Collicott, and he's ahead of them all at the moment, is Lee Berridge. Hassan is in 7th, Collicott in 8th, Josh Boot is in 9th. It couldn't be going much better for Lee Berridge right now.
Yeah, Berridge is laughing at the moment. It's, you know, even though it's solid mid-pack in GT4s, that's just exactly where he needs to be, really. No complaints there. And as long as he can get a good first stint to this race, it's looking pretty good for Berridge, as we see a swap between Matthew Crisp and Richard Simner down in towards the bus stop there, and amongst this grouping of 3. This is for 19th overall, of course, here in this one. And we're going to be seeing a lot of swaps, at least in this first stint, as the packs tend to keep themselves together. Although saying that, because of the instance that we've had, Ewan, they actually haven't kept themselves in one big line. There's sort of big separation in terms of, you know, we got a couple of cars here and there in groups of 3, groups of 4, rather than a big long train like we usually see at Daytona.
Yeah, it's surprising for Daytona to see this. Outside line for Jack Osborne into turn 1. He's broken very late there. Simner was quite conservative by the looks of things, and Osborne went right round the outside. Simner holds the inside quite nicely, and, well, he will get through now, or stay through, I should say, stay ahead of Jack Osborne, who has to tuck into line. It is unusual that we've got this situation at Daytona, though. The LMP3s have stayed a bit closer together, but even those guys have stretched out a bit more. Here we go. Oh, we're both drafting in prototypes as well. Always makes you nervous, but, well, it makes me nervous, but here we go. These guys know what they're doing. And Daniel Sesley just pushes Thomas King there towards the back of Ben Gregory, who's not far from Nathan Moore. This is a group from third place on backwards. Nobody can live with the two leaders by the looks of it.
Yeah, absolutely. They've basically checked out at this point. They've almost got 3 seconds back to Nathan Moore of both Jürgen Frank and Adam States. So they're all on their lone side. There's an incident in the back there. Prototype around. That's Craig Volchek there. That's have a problem through the first sector. Again, it's probably the hardest point of the circuit. The break and the turn in and even the exit out of that corner can be tricky sometimes. So the Alcantec car, the number 28, having problems. I don't think anyone else is involved, but the replay will tell all.
It will. Let's have a look in towards turn 1. Well, I think we may already have our answer, but let's see. It could be on his own still. Outside line, and it is, in fact. Spoke, oh dear, and very nearly got clipped on the way past the road. Spoke too soon and then, well, didn't speak too soon, then thought we did and then actually did. So, there we go. Anyway, oh dear, and nearly gets hit there by someone going wide. I think that was Denise Pope, who it was indeed, she just slips in front of him there, so that could have been worse, but thankfully nobody else involved. I mean, it's always difficult, that transition from the banking towards the braking zone at Daytona. It would be quite a difficult braking zone if it wasn't banked, actually. It's a real turn while you're braking there, and then you've got the banking to add into the mix as well. Yeah,
it takes so much practice to try and get that right. I was running the 24 Hours of Daytona earlier this year with a team, and we were in the LMP2s in that instance. And honestly, that I don't want to deal with turn 1 ever again after practicing it for many, many hours and still, not figuring out the completely correct way of going fast through that corner. It seems to be a bit of the dark arts as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, but if you can maximize that corner, boy, are you gaining a lot of time, because there were some instances where I somehow got it pretty good, and all of a sudden I'm a half a second up on my best time. So there is really a lot of time to be gained there.
There is. Josh Boot has really got his skates on here, and he's passed Mark Cullicutt, past Johansson as well already, up to 6th place in this race. Howard Chastain and Philip Bjork have already been into the pit lane, by the way. They must have had problems over the course of the day already, because pitting after 10 minutes is very unusual indeed. These leaders, though, are staying exactly where they started this race. It's Eric Grove, Andy Schill and Michael Hafliderson. Hafliderson told us last week, actually, that, or not last week, a few weeks ago, that he was actually just aiming for 2nd place in the championship now, because even first seems too far away, but 14 points is the gap between him and 2nd, and he's trying to close that in for the moment, see if he can with that 3rd place in the standings. Side by side, back in the GT4s again. Simner on the inside, and it's Jack Osborne who's looking to sort of use the banking in a bit of an unusual way to get through.
Yeah, trying to get a pass on the high side, carry momentum off the corners. That's what they were doing in NASCAR, because you run a little bit faster down the straight if you come off of the NASCAR banking from the high side, as they call it. But not really that effective in cars such as these. But Osborne still going to have a look around the outside at turn 1, but that's not really a move that tends to be on there. You have to really, really commit to try and make some progress there. So that battle will just sort of keep itself at bay for now. Battle just inside of the top 10 overall. This is Toby Ward and Denise Pope going wheel to wheel across the tri-oval. Across the start-finish line they go. Pope going to go down towards the inside of turn 1. That was a brave look, but there was really no commitment in it.
Not really. So through turn 1 they go, and Pope has got Craig Vrolik very much close behind, looking for a way through in towards the International Horseshoe. It's going to be a dive down the inside here, and a nice move in the end, although it's not done yet. Pope hangs it around the outside quite well. They'll go side by side through the left-hander at turn 4 as well here. It's going to be round the outside for Craig Rowley, but he's got his nose in front. He should prevail with the inside at the west horseshoe. Now he'll dive deep on the brakes, and there you have it. No, too deep. Oh, Silas Craig Rowley had it, and it slipped through his fingers like sand at the beach, and unfortunately he's going to be challenged again. He's finally done it though. That took maybe a couple of corners longer than it should have done, but he's finally got the place.
Yeah, that was great little duel between the two of them. Racing room given. I was a little bit scared for Pope actually, because the way they exited turn 1 got very, very close towards the pit wall there, and there was a little bit of sort of animation of smoke there, so I'm not sure if they just lightly grazed it or not. You got to be so careful though with the aero damage on these cars, especially at this track where it's aero so dependent. Oh, Craig Volich has had a big one through the bus stop. Thankfully, he doesn't hit anyone.
Well, aero is very important, and Silas Craig Rowley has just found that out the hard way through the bus stop chicane. Turned in, didn't have the rear grip at all.
Pope.
Corrected. Oh, and Pope's gone off in sympathy. Dear me, this is messy between these two, unfortunately. So Craig Rowley is back through again. Let's have another look at the 28 car here. It's going to turn in, and it just overcorrects as the slide begins. That's a spectacular spin, and Pope goes off. Well, I'm not sure if distracted or not, but either way, off into the grass.
Yeah, here's the onboard with Pope. So to see a car go off ahead, and then yeah, it's just enough to put you off, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I heard a slight tapping of the brakes. Maybe that might have helped.
Yeah,
or not helped.
When the car's loaded up through that corner, any sort of deviation is going to really spell big trouble there. And of course, you're going to be distracted about that car going off basically directly ahead of you. You're going to be wondering, okay, are they going to come back on? Are they going to come back across me? I'm going to have to react. Of course, the natural thing is to either lift off or hit the brakes in that situation, and it's probably the correct thing to do. But it's kind of not really worked in Pope's favour there, and has caused the spin afterwards.
Yeah, the aero doesn't respond well to that kind of thing, and unfortunately they've both gone for their spins. Thankfully though, they didn't hit anything.
No.
Now with the GT4s we have traffic on its way. Lee Berridge is through on Evangelos Natafas in the GT4 AMS, and the LMP3 traffic is making its way through. Thankfully the opening 15 minutes of this race has actually spread the fields out quite well. So we're not particularly seeing the really, really heavy traffic you sometimes get at the start of these races.
Yeah, we're not. So this is actually a positive sign, especially if you're prototype driver. I'm just seeing Craig Volich actually completely disconnect from the server, it seems like, dropping down the field. I don't know whether he's had a further incident or not. Might have had. I'll just try and potentially get a replay of this. I think it's the same incident. Yeah, it's the same incident. So I think the number 28 has just brought that car down on towards the pit lane for some reason, and, well, maybe some floor damage that he doesn't want to get repaired.
I think that may well be the end of his day, the end of his season, unfortunately for Silas Craig Rowley. He was not one of the championship contenders at the start of the day. Realistically, he was 4th in the standings, and it was needing to gain a whopping 29 points at the end of it, which would require him, at least to finish inside the top 5, and then would need a dramatic list of things to go his way. So unfortunately, it's the end of his day and the end of his World Sports Car Championship season. Now out onto the banking again for the leaders. Eric Grove has finally got a bit of a lead. It looks like Andy Seal has been held up slightly in traffic, although he was starting to lose the back of the number 200 before the traffic anyway.
Was, and well, meanwhile, if the battle for the GT4 Pro category is starting to get away from us, well, at least we've got the battle for GT4 AM to look at, because Nafas and Berridge stuck together like glue, and of course you've also got Chris Smith in the background as the pro driver amongst these guys, looking to try and make forward progress as well. It was a bad run for Berridge though through the bus stop. He might come under threat from Smith here if he's not too careful.
On board we go with the BMW. Looking at our fellow manufacturer teammate, if you like, up in front in the form of the 54. Just closing in now as we just see the BMW getting bigger and bigger in our shot. He's leaving half a car width down the inside here, is Berridge. He needs to be careful with that. And Christopher Smith is going to be all too happy to fill that void down the inside into turn 1. And I think in the end, Berridge was actually all too happy to let him through and kind of wanted to let him get on with this. But Smith keeps making mistakes like that, and Berridge is straight back through again.
Yeah, you overcommitted to the corner a little bit, overdriven it. I mean, you can kind of forgive it because you get a lot of slipstream down into there, if you're not compensating for the draft, and you hit your normal braking point as you would in clear air, you're going to overshoot, aren't you? Because you're carrying a little bit too much speed. So it's a normal issue there, but it has cost Smith the position now, because that looked quite easily gained for him. If he was able to hold it on the inside there, that would have been absolutely fine, and now he's being disrupted by LMP3 traffic trying to head its way through, so that's not a fantastic situation. He's probably hoping that Berridge gets disrupted a little bit more coming into the entry on towards the oval here. In fact, the LMP is the one that overdrives it through that particular section, but is able to get away with it.
Well, it's through turn 6, and Berridge did have a slightly compromised line on the way towards the banking there. It's given Evangelos Natafas a bit of a lead right now, of about 8/10 of a second, probably the biggest lead he's had for a while, although Christopher Smith doesn't look like he's been able to get close really at all as a result of this. Let's go back to LMP3. Thomas King is looking to hold on from Daniel Sedgley at the moment, and is finding that pretty easy. Sedgley seemingly wanting to push King along the track instead of really going for a move at turn 1.
Yeah, it's a fine strategy. You got to be so careful though in these cars doing bump drafting. They're not like stock cars where they have a completely flat or relatively flat bumper. You've got all sorts of little things you can catch things on, especially with the new damage model, and it can be a very big issue. You just hit that back of that car just in the wrong place at the wrong time, then you're going to have big problems, and you have a catastrophic incident down onto one of these straights or in the banked oval turns, of course. So you have to be very careful indeed. I've seen it so many times when we've broadcasted iRacing Daytona 24 hours. There's going to be at least a couple per race that pin themselves in the wall because they've gotten the bump draft wrong.
Yeah, and I still get it. I know it's been going on for years now. Well, years, multiple, at least 8 years. And it still makes me nervous, to be honest. It's not a comfortable thing to watch, but it is certainly effective. And that's what they're trying to utilise back there at the moment. A little bit more expected back with these guys, but Richard Timner and Jack Osborne have not been working together at all, I wouldn't describe it. They're fighting for 5th place at the moment in the GT4 category. And they're still ahead of all the AMs, by the way. They're the last two to be ahead of the AM leading battle, which is just about 3.5 seconds behind this one. For whatever reason, I can't figure it out why, they're just not working together here. Surely if they worked a bit further together, they'd be able to get up the order, but these two have also given up. Daniel Sedgley is now through to 4th.
Yep, he is. And, well, let's see if that's just sort of a permanent swap around, or whether or not they're just going to be trading places and slingshotting off of each other to try and close that gap up to Nathan Moore. But that gap stands at about 4 seconds at this stage, which is not ideal, considering we are still on the first stint here in this race. So the race starting to get away from these guys pretty quickly, shall I say. Meanwhile, the actual leaders, I mean, there's a rift developed between them as well. Jürgen Frank and Adam State, there's almost 3 seconds between them now. So we'll see how that works out. The benefit that these guys will have as well, and potentially Hyder as he tries to get onto the back of this as well, is that these guys will be able to save a bit of fuel in the draft. Jürgen Frank won't, Adam State won't, Nathan Moore won't, okay? So they're going to have a little bit more issues with regards to the fuel economy in the stops.
That is true. And it may just shorten their last pit stop as well. I'm not sure how tight we're going to be on fuel today, but we're a good 10 minutes away from finding out, and if they're able to go a lot further than that, then I'm sure they'll be very pleased. Their final pit stop may be a little bit shorter as a result, maybe than they were expecting. Into the bus stop chicane they go now. 4th place is this battle we're watching at the moment. It's Daniel Sedgley at the front, then Thomas King, Nicholas Hyder, and Ben Gregory, who's tagged onto this. He's the AM leader at the moment. He's the championship leader as well, although only by 6 points going into today. East Boymaster might have been fancying his chances, but Ben Gregory has put pay to hopes pretty early on here, at least in the early stages.
Well, it's 4 seconds to Ridpath, and then 4 seconds after Ridpath to Boymaster as well. So, yeah, it's looking pretty comfortable here for Gregory at the moment. But remember, we do have at least 2 pit stops to go, and you know, anything can happen in them, especially at a track such as this one, where you can have a catastrophic incident pretty much anywhere on the circuit, and it's going to be a fast one usually. So yeah, you just got to keep that in mind and not rest on your laurels, even though you have quite the upper hand at this stage. You just got to keep on the grey stuff, and generally things will be okay.
Yeah, generally. In towards turn one we go as well with Christoph Waitz, another one of the Sim RC drivers. Matt Mafarko is here as well with Denise Pope, and Mafarko makes his way down the inside and through again on a bit of a recovery drive, of course. Today he's now 13th in LMP3. He's behind Christoph Waitz in the Sim RC car at the moment. Part of course, the championship leading team's championship team, although he's got it all wrong out of the International Horseshoe, and Matt Mafarko goes straight back through again on this recovery drive.
Yeah, and for the driver that was third place in AM, with a decent chance at taking the championship potentially coming into this one, there's a long road back from here for Mafarko, and he might need a little bit of help from things happening to other drivers as well. So not great, but you have to deal with the cards that you've been dealt. You have to keep out there with that. Well, it's not an endurance race, but you have to keep the endurance racing spirit going, don't you? You have to keep going out there and make sure that you're there to pick up the pieces for any drivers that have problems a little bit later on in the event. But yeah, it's a big shame for Mafarko. Meanwhile, we've got Ben Gregory and Thomas King fighting it out down in towards turn number one. Gregory around the outside, long way round.
And it's very close and a bit of a risk to take for the championship leader as well, and race leader, of course. Side by side they go through the S's, and Ben Gregory has got the inside and surely the place now, and he does take that one ahead of Thomas King, who's been losing a couple of places in the last couple of laps. Gregory may just be dealing with a bit of an overlap though, and he is. Round the outside goes King. Oh dear, and he looks to the outside, then the inside again. Gets later on the brakes. Down the inside goes Thomas King and straight back through again. So that was a topsy-turvy battle. Thought Gregory had that, and he flashes the lights as well, as if to say, why did we just do that?
Yeah, that was interesting, because it's dropped them off the back of Hyder now by, what, another second or so due to that entire sequence. That has just gotten rid of the drafting train that they were just about, really, to establish themselves in, so they can work on their field numbers a little bit just to gain a bit of an upper hand in the stops. But now they're going to need to try and lock onto the back of Sedgley and Hyder again, and even that is not necessarily a guarantee. But these guys, they know what they need to do. They've probably done all the calculations coming into today. Where do they need to finish in relation to their competition to make sure they get either the championship win or where they need to be in the championship? As Gregory, you can see how powerful the slipstream is around here. He's able to draw himself all the way back up to the back of King and even make way around the outside.
Yeah, even if he wasn't too impressed about the fact they battled last lap, he wants to do it again and chops right in front of King. That was a bit of a risk, but he's taking a few now, and King is not pleased with it. Round the outside, Gregory dives it deep on the brakes and puts his car again in front of King. And I've got to say, he's putting his car in some dangerous places at the moment. He's defending again from King, and this at the moment has got trouble written all over it. For a championship leader who doesn't need to take risks, and a race leader who realistically doesn't need to take risks either, this is a lot of risk taking.
It does feel that way. It really, really does. Of course, this is going to be perhaps more annoying for King than it is for Gregory, because King obviously wanting to at least get himself inside the top three in terms of the LMP3 Pro Championship, but he's not going to do that if Gregory is causing him so many issues. He has the right to. Of course, they are competing for the same points after all, even though they're Pro versus AM. It's just that it's easy to get frustrated in this position if you're number 35 right now.
And Gregory doesn't really need the points either. He's the championship leader, he's leading the race. Down the inside goes King again into the Le Mans chicane on the back straight, and Gregory's going to have to back out of that one. Flashes the lights again on corner entry. Well, I don't know entirely what he's displeased with, because King is just doing exactly the same thing that he's doing to King. So they're both contributing to this one, and Gregory is almost too close through NASCAR 3 and 4. He's got to take that long run round the outside of the banking, and it's never a great idea in an LMP3 or indeed in road course racing generally, but he has got decent straight line speed, and that might not be helping Thomas King, I've got to say here actually. Now he'll look for the inside line. Gregory's right round the outside, they're close again. Very nearly a brush in towards turn 1, and Thomas King this time has the place again.
This is getting quite spicy between the two of them now, and each time they do that, they're just dropping more time to Sedgley ahead. And in fact, Sophia Ridpath around behind. I was just about to mention that she was catching them up by a rate of knots, but now she's just taking the toe back to pit lane, completely out of it.
Well, that is a bizarre one, but Sophia Ridpath loses it, spins around at the International Horseshoe, and all of a sudden is gone. And so the gap now 8 seconds again, the gap restored for Ben Gregory, who's going to be pleased about that after the last few laps, I've got to say. But that is a bizarre one, to just tow back to pit lane immediately after a spin like that is unusual.
Yeah, and she didn't make contact with anything either, like not from what I saw. Unless there was something that she hit before that then caused that spin, that in terms of damage, but at least nothing that I could see on the car. So that was a little bit weird. But either way, we are down another car in our LMP3 category. Just going to have a look and see how many retirements that we currently have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 retirements across the entire race so far out of 33 cars. But yeah, that was a weird one for me to hear there.
It was. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of as well, really, is that maybe she clipped something beforehand, which has caused the spin, and then, she's given up after that, I suppose. But that's the only reason I can really think of. Eric Grove still leading in GT4 Pro. We haven't checked in with him for a while, but still got Andy Shield right behind. And speaking of Olympus, this is Sophia Ridpath again. Towards turn 1 now. Just see clip anything on the way here. It's all that's good into turn 1 so far. Late on the break, you can see the two battling in front will be likely very motivated at this point, but it just looks like it's going to drop it on the way through the International Horseshoe. Let's see.
Yeah, it's being distracted by the cars ahead again, isn't there?
Yeah,
it's the exact situation we saw with Pope earlier on. And instead of continuing on, Ridpath's just decided that that's it for me as far as this season is concerned. I'm just going to bring it down on towards the pit lane and call it a day.
Unfortunately, that is what we've seen here tonight from Sophia Ridpath. She'll end the season no higher than 12. She's only picked up 14 points so far, and that's what she'll end on here this season in the World Sportscar Championship. There are the two leaders in GT4 Pro again, and these two really are working together. We were mentioning earlier that maybe some people out there on the road maybe should think about starting to work together, but these two actually are, and they're putting it to good use as well, putting the rest of the GT4 field very much adrift.
They are. It's been a great showing so far from both Eric Grove and Andy Shield. Of course, there's a little bit closer run thing behind. It's the battle for GT4 AM, and it's between all three of these cars actually. So Natafas, you got Sperridge, you got Boot, all involved in this 3-car train. Your entire GT4 AM podium is basically within one shot.
And that is fantastic to see. Good for the battles, certainly. Now, close behind then, Josh Boot looking for points. The gap currently between the two, only 4 points between Lee Berridge and Josh Boot at the moment, as we've got Jus Boomeister into the pit lane. The first pit stop just inside of half an hour, which either is a concern for the driver of the 48, or indeed he's just pitted early as a strategic call, and he'll be hoping that, well, I'm hoping on his behalf that it's the second one.
I mean, he could be taking the strategy of pitting every 30 minutes. That sounds like a reasonable call that you might make. Instead of extending the fuel tanks out, you might want to do that. Just if you're just trying to work out if the track position will actually work out in your favour doing that versus trying to extend the fuel and the stint as long as possible. Of course, they do have to come down in twice. They don't have any ifs or buts about it. I mean, the fuel tanks won't do a one-stop, that's for sure. But it's in the regulations that you have to do a minimum of 2. So the pit window is open for each of your passes here. for all intents and purposes if they do want to do that hit every 30-minute strategy.
Well, yes, and it looks like it's no struggle either. Jürgen Frank and Adam State, who have spent most of this race driving on their own into the draft themselves, or into the air resistance, if you like, they've not clearly struggled here. So,
although I think Frank might have been having a pretty bad time with traffic, because State has caught up, that 2-3 seconds that was established between the two of them just over the last couple of laps. And I think in situations like this, where you're passing the GT4 leaders and they're not in too much of a hurry to get out your way.
Yeah, I think that's hurt Frank a bit here, and Adam State is back on terms again. And now that he's in the slipstream, he should be able to at least latch himself onto the back here and try and keep with the driver in front of him, Jürgen Frank, the championship leader, of course, in the LMP3 Pro. For him to lose the title here today, he would have to drop outside of the top 10 by the end of it. We'll wait and see if that happens, but at the moment it's looking pretty unlikely. Ben Gregory is coming from the lead of LMP3 and maybe just covering off Bumeister, his championship rival, who came in a few laps ago, or indeed last lap.
Yeah, indeed. There's really still not all that much pressure for Gregory at the moment. Yes, he did lose quite a bit of time involved in the various fights that he's got himself involved in over the past couple of laps, but he still maintained a pretty decent gap over Bumeister, so it's not too much of a problem. We'll have to see whether these leaders come down in now or they go at least one more lap, because we had another couple come down in that time around, and is there going to be any movement to the inside? Doesn't look like. So Franklin State will continue on out there at least for one more.
Now State is not really closed very much in the slipstream there either. That's not a concern, because he's just lifting off and feathering a little bit to save a bit of fuel, but I was listening in there and it didn't sound like it. Has Jürgen Frank got a little bit less aero on board, and is he just utilising that to stay ahead and stay away from Adam State at the moment in the lead of this race? They've got a long way to anybody behind them at this stage, and so it's that's not a concern, but the straight line speed maybe, as Josh Boot gets to the outside of his championship rival Lee Berridge. This is an important one in GT4 RAM.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Of course, this is a battle for not only second place in this race in GT4 AM, but it's a battle for the championship leads in GT4 AM as well. Of course, it depends exactly where this battle happens in the overall GT4 standings as the lights come on. We're past that point now with 56.5 minutes left to go, as Boot looks around the outside here on that BMW, but not going to make any further progress there. But like I was saying, Ewan, how this battle is going to swing depends on where exactly these guys are in the GT4 pack, and what the points difference is between, for example, where they are between the exact positions where they are in GT4. So we'll have to try and break out the calculators with regards to that, but there's only 4 points between them coming into today.
Yes, they're in 8th and 9th at the moment in the GT4 standings, with Berridge currently gaining 2 points on Boot, but obviously if it was to reverse, then Boot would gain 2 points on him. Although, as you mentioned, with a 4-point gap at the start, that still doesn't matter at this stage. So if they would win, they would be tied on points, and then I really don't know what happens, because they don't actually get overall race wins in GT4. They don't have any first place finishes. So is it just the highest place they've finished all season overall? I've no idea, but let's worry about that if it comes to it, because Lee Berridge and Josh Boot right now are going to go side by side on the racetrack. It's a long way round the outside from the banking here for Boot. It's going to be slipstream for Berridge again. Does Natafas come in? Yes. So this will be the battle for the lead all of a sudden. Side by side they go over the line. Boot needs to go the long way round here at turn 1, and it's not going to happen. He's probably decided that it's not a good idea really, and he will do the cutback and wait again for a better opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, and we do have to be careful about talking about championships as well, because you get penalty points for your incident points as well, and we can't really forget about that either. So it might be a bit complicated trying to work out what the situation is between these two, because I don't believe we've been given permissions in the server to be able to see what the incident points are between these two, to try and work out whatever the opposite bonus points are, penalty points. There we go.
Yes. Yeah, that could be an issue to figure out later on as well, as Natafas gets going again. and makes his way out of the pit lane along with everybody else in the field. The GT4 field, that is, who have come in soon. Now here we go. Jürgen Frank and Adam State. Are they going to be in or not? Frank's in. And State carries on, so State will go to nearly 52 minutes to go. What a remarkably long opening stint it has been from him.
Yeah, I mean, he had the luxury of that last couple of laps just sitting in the slipstream of Frank, so it's understandable why he's going to be that he's been able to go one more. Nathan Moore also decides to come down in. Same with Hyder, same with Sedgley as well. Thomas King, he just about gets him stopped, so he's in as well. Is State going to be the only one in the prototypes that's been going going to go for this extra lap? That's quite brave, if so.
Toby Ward is next, and there he is making his way through the bus stop chicane. McFarquhar has already been in, but of course that wasn't really a stop. It was for damage earlier on and clipping the wall at turn 1. So that doesn't really count. He will probably have an extra couple of laps on the others. John Roberts will be making his way around as well, but these guys have found themselves so far back that they will do well to even get out ahead of Jürgen Frank. In comes Toby Ward. So it does look like Adam State is going for, and Roberts is as well, so Adam State is going for one longer than everyone else, which, as you say, is a bit of a risk and a brave one, but he's clearly got the fuel.
Yep, just making sure that he's got the fuel with the onboard here. He's going to be heading his way down into the bus stop now. Is there a big lift? Not really.
Yeah, just a very light one, really. I mean, a big feather on the throttle, but you know, it's nothing too dramatic, and they may well be on the way into pit lane as well, a slight lift off, but it just shows the level at which this fuel requirement has come down in terms of the percentage, because we, going to nearly 52 minutes here. There's going to be some very short stops at the end.
Berridge ahead of Boot coming off of pit lane. Here comes Adam State from the race lead, down and in, gets himself slowed down just fine for the pit lane speed limits here of 88 kilometers an hour. But trundling his way down now. Where's he going to come out in relation to Jürgen Frank? Because, of course, he was able to go that extra lap. There is Jürgen Frank. He's currently given a bit of a flashy light. Oh, this might be a tough spot for Jürgen Frank to try and get himself through on this Aston Martin. It's going to compromise him on the exit here. Oh, so close. But if he's had to lift there, then that's going to have lost him time to Adam State.
How much time? How will it affect this fight with Adam State? There he is on pit lane. Just one from the end, of course. For whatever reason, he's got a bit of a gap between himself and the pace car. He did get pole in this race, and the extra couple of points that goes with it as well, just taking them away from Jürgen Frank, who could have made his job and his life a little bit easier. Would have meant he would require 12th and not 11th. But here we go with Adam State out on the way out of the pit lane. It's going to be cold tyres and the exit access road, of course, but he's going to be the lead, and it's going to be by a couple of seconds for Adam State.
Careful in the cold tyres, though, going into the International Horseshoe. There was a bit of a puff of tyre smoke there as he tried to get the car stopped, but it was a 1.6 second pit stop advantage there for Adam State. So going that extra lap, saving all that fuel, has really paid off for him at the moment. He's still struggling with the cold tyres in towards the second horseshoe there. A little bit of a lock-up on the front end, but he's going to be very happy about a 2-second advantage right now.
Matt Farquhar is in now as well after that early stop for him, of course. He'll probably make 3 today, although he's already completed his mandatory ones, I suppose. He has to make another one for fuel. He's no way going 50 minutes in today's race. So that means everyone has been down pit lane for a long stop, apart from Howard Hassan, who now leads in GT4 AM. He has not made a pit stop yet. Josh Boot, though, is through on Lee Berridge. The two of them are fighting. Evangelos Nasafas has had a 5-second longer pit stop, and he's miles behind his rivals now as well, more than 15 seconds behind. So Josh Boot is now through ahead of Lee Berridge, but where are the next positions going to come from? They're all going to gain from Howard Hassan, who's going to come in a moment, and they're going to get to first and second. But what has happened to Natafas here?
Well, let's have a look at it. Down in towards turn number 1, always the tricky spot around here. Just slow. Unless he has fuel issues, or is it just the downshift didn't quite work out. We'll try and replay it again. Oh, is it going to be? Oh, yeah, it's going to be here actually. Looped it through the International Horseshoe.
And that's the explanation why he's 15 seconds currently behind Boot and Berridge, who are fighting over what will become the lead in GT4 AM. But Boot still needs more points here. And I've got to say, in a bit of a harrowing moment for us, I can't find any tie-breaking rules. So I don't know whether that's because I'm blind and can't see them, or whether it's because there aren't any. I fear it may be the second one, especially for these AM drivers who haven't won a race overall. Is it going to be on their individual race wins, which aren't really a thing, because you're not really scoring points based on your own class, it's based on the overall class. And if so, who has had the best scoring round so far? That's going to take some working out.
Yep, it absolutely will. So yeah, we've got all these different systems interacting with each other. There's Howard Hassan coming down on towards the pit lane for a stop finally, as that Century Sim sports car will get it self-serviced and hopefully back out there in the not too distant future. But yeah, to recap, you know, 2 points for the pole position, 3 points for the fastest lap for the top driver from each class. Yeah, there's a lot to take into account.
However, that fastest lap is GT4 overall, so if one of them get it, then they'll have to be faster than the pros as well. The current race leader and their best lap is Eric Grove, of course, 52.5, but Shields done a 52.4, and he advances on that. 52.2 from Josh Boot. It looks like he's getting the fastest lap right now as well. Maybe he would take the title by a point if things stand because of the fastest lap.
That's not including any potential penalty points they have for instance points. That's the thing. And that's the tricky thing here at Daytona. You know, you got that big old bus stop 1X that you tend to get. It's so you had to be so careful.
So very careful. And at the moment, though, Josh Boot, without provisionally at least, is leading the way in the championship. If he does hold on to the fastest lap, that does make things a lot easier to work out who is going to get what from this, because effectively that fastest lap on its own reduces the gap to 1 point, and then it's basically a winner-takes-all situation. As long as they both finish inside the top 20, which they're both going to do in GT4, because there are barely 20 in the field. In fact, there are a couple more, but they're obviously having decent races, so they're not back there. It's going to be winner takes all, or at least leader of the two takes all in this championship battle as things stand.
Yep, it is. That's the way we like to see it. I mean, we just had a championship in the British F4, which is also sort of run in the background by WSR as well, so I'm allowed to talk about it, where that went all the way back to the amount of 5th places on the count back, which was absolutely insane. I don't think we're going to get anything like that today, but it would be interesting.
Well, we're not going to be able to work that out if it is,
yeah.
So sorry about that. Boot defends a little bit into the International Horseshoe, and Berridge not able to go through. Wonder if that just changes things ever so slightly here, because Boot did look a little bit quicker than Berridge on the lead up to that battle. I wonder whether Berridge is going to be desperate to find his way through, or whether he can believe he can stick in with Boot. With the slipstream, of course, he'll be gaining from sitting behind him like that.
I mean, potentially, he's just got to keep himself in contention, isn't he, here? That's the main aim of the game still. You know, just less than 46 minutes left in this race, plenty of time to get it done and then try and pull away. But then again, they're also 5.6 off the back of Simno, which is their closest challenger up the road. So in terms of having to try and gain more points for a buffer, then that's not exactly going to work out in their favor. So they're kind of really isolated together at the moment. You know, there's, well, battle ahead is 5.6 seconds up the road, and the battle behind is 13 seconds behind them.
And that's the problem for Boot, really. If he didn't have the fastest lap, that would be his issue in this situation, where he's only gaining 2 points because of positions. He can't really go anywhere and gain any more. So that's his issue, and that's why he needs to hold on to fastest lap here. He needs to make sure he doesn't tow Lee Berridge around to a fastest lap that would beat his own. That would be a complete and utter disaster. It would mean he'd have to gain 4 places on Berridge, and that doesn't look likely to happen, really. It's going to be very difficult to do that for Boot. Anyway, what are the times going to be over the line this time around for the Porsche and the BMW, which continue not to battle between the two of them? For Boot, it was a 53.2, and it was for Berridge as well, so clearly they were a little bit slower than the fastest laps of Josh Boot on that last lap time, but it's a battle between the two of them. I wonder whether Berridge is just going to stay here, though, until the remainder of this stint. No point in fighting too hard. There's still 3/4 of an hour to go.
Yeah, not that much point. especially given, you know, that, like I said, there's no places to chase after this as well. So you might as well just sort of sit there, look after your tyres, look after your fuel. Potentially would be the main thing here for Berridge, so that he's able to gain the upper hand in that final stop by taking a little bit less fuel, getting that track position ahead. The ideal situation for Berridge would be gain as much track position as possible in that stop, come out ahead and outside the slipstream of boots. That could be the plan of action here, but the prototypes heading through and disrupting him have really hampered his progress on that lap. He drops out outside of a second now behind.
And that's a very dangerous place to be. If he's got no slipstream and he's that far behind, then he is in a bit of a dangerous place there. Jürgen Frank is getting onto the just hanging on to Adam State at the moment in first place, as we go back to the fight for third as well between Christopher Smith, who's made a real improvement in this 45 minutes, and Michael Flidderson as well, who's slipped back to fourth, now off the podium in GT4 Pro. Over the line again for these two, and they're far removed away from dreams of winning this race, which Michael Flidderson may have had at the start of it.
Oh, Smith pushes out wide through turn one, so Halfordson nips himself down and through, and well, that will be the easier position that he's going to gain all day. I think he was sort of handed it on a silver platter, and now it's not too far down the road to Andy Shield at the moment. It's 1.5 seconds, definitely doable in the time that we have remaining. And then if you're going for Shield, you might as well go for Grove, because they're all both stuck together like glue at the moment.
Well, you wonder as well whether it might be worth those two working together rather than doing that kind of thing in towards turn one, because they were, you know, losing time, no doubt, while doing that. And while they, as you say, they've not lost loads of time, they can still see their main rivals. You wonder whether that's drafting past one another or actually bumping one another down the straight and through the banking or whatever. You might be wondering, yeah, maybe it's probably a better idea for them to actually work together, as they seem to be doing through the first part, although overtakes are quite rare into the bus stop anyway.
Yeah, indeed they are. It requires a lot of compliance and racecraft on the both sides of the battle to try and make that one work. I mean, it can and does happen on the final lap. Generally, it's the car behind trying to put the car ahead into a bad position to get a bad run through the bus stop, so then they can maximise it on the exit with the final sprint towards the start-finish line. And I get the feeling, with battles being as close as they are, you know, if they continue stuck together in these little battle packs, you know, groups of 3, groups of 2, at the very end of this race, then there's no reason why they can't have a photo finish in both classes by the end. And speaking of, leaders in GT and leaders in prototypes.
Yeah, pretty wide ever so briefly there for Jürgen Frank. He's going to get the slipstream of someone else as well, and but unfortunately it's Denise Pope, and unfortunately he's blocked. And on the way towards turn one, Adam State will get through again. Now onto his teammates. Oh, and there's awkwardness there. As either side of the McLaren they go. Andy Shield was trying to be helpful. In the end, Adam State very nearly crashed into him, and it was nearly a team disaster. That's exactly why you don't try and get off the racing line as a slower car.
Yeah, absolutely. Bit of miscommunication between the two of them there, and we've almost had teammate on teammate contact, which is rule number 1 in motorsports. Don't ever do that. But they're very, very lucky to get away with it there, and Adam State continuing to hold on to his race lead at the moment. But we've got our roles kind of reversed compared to the first stint here now. It's Adam State leading with Jürgen Frank sitting in the slipstream, so we might see a bit of a swap around of fortunes in the pit stop here if it continues like this.
Well, they're not far away. 40 minutes remaining here at Daytona in the final round of the World Sports Car Championship at the end of 2023. And Jürgen Frank, the championship leader, is in a race-leading fight for the first time in a little while. If only Adam State was here and was this quick every single round, then we could have had a right barnstormer between these two. But unfortunately, the way it is right now, Jürgen Frank is going to take home the title by roughly 30 points in the end. In fact, it's a big, big win for him, looking like at the moment. What about for the race though? He does seem to have good straight line speed. The amount of speed he's got over State there was miraculous until he started to feather the throttle.
Yeah, saving that fuel. I would rate, unless State has been deliberately sort of sandbagging in a way with the straight line speed, just lifting out for his own fuel concerns, then I would definitely rate Jürgen Frank in a sprint to the line if it has to come to it at the very end of this race. That car looks like a complete weapon on the banking and on the straights. So we'll have to see whether that will come to fruition for Frank, because I think State, if he's been put in that situation with Jürgen Frank behind on the final lap, I think he's kind of a sitting duck, to be honest.
Yeah, it could be a problem, and that's when the sort of games are going to come into it at the end of the race. At Daytona, it's not often about an all-out scrap between who can overtake here and who can defend there. It's about who can be behind going on to the final lap, and that does create some unusual situations where there's a lot of cat and mouse going on in those final laps. That is, of course, as long as these two get to that final 10 minutes or so in this situation which they're in right now.
Indeed, and well, so we got battle for P1 in prototypes, battle for P3 in prototypes. We got a battle for, well, 4-car battle now for P1 in GT4s, because you got Grove, Shield, Alfredson and Smith all involved in this one. A little bit of a split down the middle where that prototype is for the moment, but I would still count them all under the same blanket here. Then you've got a battle for P1 in your GT4 AM as well. So battle for the race leads everywhere. The only place we don't have a battle for the race lead is LMP2, LMP3 AM.
Yeah, they're all pretty spread out at the moment. Here goes Jürgen Frank through on Adam State. So, well, I can't work out whether Frank wants to stay behind or go through, because he seems to change his mind almost every other lap. Waits behind for one lap and then goes through on another. This time, Adam State just hangs back again in this one. Maybe Frank is, seeing pit stops on the horizon and thinking, this could be a problem for me, because he did come out a couple of seconds behind during the last pit stop phase. Let's not forget that Adam State's pit stop was 1.6 seconds shorter. Not sure what that was really down to. Was that fuel saved in the first stint from State, or was it Jürgen Frank, or was it intentional short fueling from him by just a lap or so? Not entirely sure.
The thing is that if he did short fuel, this is big problems, because that short fuel is meant to get you out ahead of with the track position, and you're not coming under risk of slipstreaming from behind. But you saw that Jürgen Frank was able to catch up so quickly within, 5 laps or so, and instantly cause State issues. So then what have you taken less fuel for? Just to hold a 2-second advantage for the first 4 laps? That doesn't seem like a great trade.
Exactly, and that's for that reason I don't think that's the case. I think it's more likely that it was fuel saved in that first stint, because let's not forget he spent a lot of that first stint behind Frank, and he will have saved fuel in that. 1.6 seconds is quite large, so I'm surprised a little bit about that, but yeah, I wouldn't have thought it was a strategic call from State, because around a circuit like Daytona you just can't really get it or get ahead and stay ahead of somebody quite so reliably. There he is again, stuck in the slipstream of Frank, and he's clearly not going anywhere, even if Frank almost seems to be ushering him down the inside there.
Yeah, it's a little give and take here in the battle for P1. It's going to be an interesting develop over the next 36 minutes, that's for sure. We've got this battle for P3 as well that we have to keep in the back of the mind, and of course the big 4-car train, the race lead in GT4s as well. That might give us a little bit of spice to finish off not only this race but this entire season as well. But of course, I think probably our main feature potentially might be this battle between Josh Boot and Lee Berridge for GT4 AM, because they are still close, not as close as we've seen them, but they're still in the same postcode. And Berridge, if he's able to work some magic here in getting towards the final stint, he might just be able to get himself ahead of Boots and make a good go at that championship.
Well, it's 8th and 9th at the moment. Grove was setting the fastest lap of the entire race so far in GT4 Pro, but Boot's lap time is still quicker. So Josh Boot is still getting those 3 points, and if those 3 points were to be able to take away from him, then he would lose the championship as they run right now. Jack Wilkins and Evangelos Natalfas are fighting at the moment, as well as Juice Boymeister makes his final pit stop, the earliest of the final pit stops made here this evening with 35 minutes to go. Unfortunately, it's a long shot for him to get ahead of Ben Gregory today.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite going to happen for him under normal circumstances here, as you'll still see him trundle out of pit lane. It's a big shame for Boomeister. He kind of wasn't his day from really the opening laps, was it, when he dropped back through the field and had big issues. Meanwhile, we have battle for P3 going on. Hyder versus Moore once again, and well, it doesn't help that Hyder is having a bit of an issue keeping connected to the server.
Well, he's into third for now, at least, and we'll see how long that holds for Nathan Moore right behind. These two are both the fellow championship contenders for Jürgen Frank here today in the LMP3 class. But with only 12 still running here in LMP3, they need Frank to finish in 12th place. And even then, it may be a tall order for either of them to win the title here, since he's gone over the 50% mark, which is what you have to do to score points here today. In fact, everyone out there at the moment has scored points for this race, wherever they finish, now that they are still running. Eric Grove is a championship leader we've not spoken about too much because he's been leading this race so comfortably for so long here, but he's almost confirming himself as a champion as well. After that pole position gave him a 19-point advantage, he's in a very similar situation to Frank now, where it's very difficult for him to lose the lead if he stays inside the top 10, and it looks as if he's going to do that for now.
Tafas and Wilkins continuing on their little duel in towards turn number 1 here, and you can see the swap back cut underneath for Wilkins. It's a great little fight between these two, having a little bit of fun out there. Of course, they don't want to get too close to each other, given they're from the same team, but having a little bit of fun, at least for positions a little bit further down the order in the GT. Not too far, but it probably was hoping to be a better day for the both of them.
Well, that was close. One of the LMP3s round the outside, which you've always got to be careful of at turn 4. The GT4s will always go wide there. The aerodynamic downforce they have is far inferior to that of the prototypes flying through. And the Tafas will now be on a different line to Wilkins, and that's going to make things awkward for the LMP3. In the end, it makes things far more awkward for Wilkins, who loses out a load of time. And Tafas will hold third now, and arguably he is a bit quicker as well, to be fair, because we saw him out in the lead earlier on. We saw him a long way away from the from Wilkins, certainly in the previous stint of the race. It's just that spin really that's put him into this fight with Jack Wilkins.
Yes, meanwhile, we see movement in GT4s. Chris Smith in 83 has decided to come down in for this is final stop now. At least it should be getting to that point now, because we saw these guys were able to get comfortably over 30 minutes on the fuel, so 31 and a half to get to the end is not necessarily going to be an issue. So coming down in now, so that's our first stopper that's going to be able, apart from Boomeister, is going to get to the end of the race now.
Nathan Moore staying very close to Nicholas Hyder here for this final podium place in the LMP3 standings. He's not got that problem of being too close either. He's the perfect distance. He'll get right up close just as they come off NASCAR turn 4 now. And, well, he's not quite got the straight line speed. Thought he was going to just push on and shoot on past here, but no. Still behind, and still behind, and staying behind, and lifting again for Nathan Moore. So Nicholas Hyder will hang on to the place and will scare Nathan Moore probably with the blinking he's doing.
Yeah, I don't think Moore wanted to risk it. If you know a car's blinking quite a lot, potentially you might be a little bit more careful about where and when you're actually going to make a move, which is quite understandable. And actually, it might work into the advantage of the car that is blinking, but there, of course, are differing views on that one. But as they head their way through the kink in the middle of the circuit, through that on that GT4 traffic, it sometimes can be quite tricky if you meet traffic in the wrong place in that section, because of course the prototypes can much more easily deviate their line under high-speed corners because they've got so much aero. And the GT4 is kind of like bricks. You know, they pick a line in a high-speed corner, they're just going to take it no matter, and you can't exactly change it midway through.
Yeah, comparatively, a lot less nimble and agile in those situations. Half an hour to go then in the final round of the World Sports Car Championship at the end of 2023. GT4 Pro leaders still nose to tail, as are most of the leaders in fact. We've got 3 leading fights and one for a championship as well, although Josh Boot has just extended a second over Lee Berridge again. I've got to say, I'm not so confident in Lee Berridge that he can get back on terms again with Josh Boot here. I know he's brought the gap back from a second and lower again in previous races, in previous instances, I guess, of this battle, but that's a gap that may not close here. When you don't have the slipstream at Daytona, it becomes very difficult indeed.
It really does. 1.3 seconds is just right on the edge, and it's it'll be a world of hurt here for Berridge if he falls any further back than this. I mean, if he has the chance, if he can dig deep and find something here, he can try and get onto the back, or potentially if he's he's got a potential fuel advantage, then maybe he can get that time back in the pit stop as well. That won't be outside the realms of possibility, as he's now dropped 1.6 behind Josh Boot because of the traffic trying to get itself through.
Yep, it's getting a larger and larger gap, and to be honest, if I was Berridge, I'd be tempted to come in now. I'd be tempted to come in and just do something a little bit different. Don't sort of demoralise yourself trying to close this immovable gap. Just get in the pit lane, get some fresh impetus here, and try for the final 28 minutes to get back on terms again, because right now all he's hoping for is a faster lap from somebody, and it has come, to be fair. Andy Seal has gone quicker, and he's stolen the 3 points away from Josh Boot, and right now Lee Berridge still will win the championship.
Oh no, that's it's interesting how that all comes into play, doesn't it? Fastest lap by someone completely unrelated to the battle can really turn the tide.
And it just has done. Shield with a faster time by 19 thousandths of a second ahead of Josh Boot there, and that's probably partly down to the fact that he's slipstreaming off of Eric Grove. Now, Josh Boot was probably slipstreaming during his fast lap as well, to be fair, but even so, it doesn't make it any less frustrating now for Josh Boot, who at the very least has got to take one more position to be tied with Berridge, and then we don't really know what happens, because there's no tiebreaker as far as I can work out. So it's
and penalty points.
and penalty points. We don't know what's going to happen there either, so we'll just leave it how it is and let those who are involved find out at the end of the race. But they may well end today still not knowing whether they're champions or not.
I mean, yeah, that might just be the situation. Of course, we don't have a live readout of how many instant points they have. Once you get 10, you get 1 penalty point, and then every third instant after that, another point. And if you exceed 24 instants, you get a drive-through penalty. So if we see them come down on a drive-through, we can assume that they've at least lost a couple of penalty points as well.
Yep. Unfortunately so. Over the line again for these GT4 Pro leaders. Havison is really trying to hang on to the coattails of these two in front, and can't quite at the moment. He's getting a bit of a sort of a whiff of a draft, if you like, but nothing too major. On the brakes, he closes in again, and there you go. They are a little bit closer together now. Maybe we do have 3 for the lead then. Not sure where Christopher Smith has gone, I've got to say, but I reckon he's probably pitted. He has.
Yes. He's
come into the pit lane, so he's doing something a little bit different here. Don't mind that at all, although his pit stop was 35 seconds. I can't imagine the others will have quite as long of a stop.
Yeah, I imagine not. So we'll have to see. It's a big call there from Smith to come down in and just try and get into some clear air. Of course, he's not going to have the benefit of any fuel saving in no man's lands there. So again, we'll see how it works out. I think he's relying potentially on this front three getting themselves involved in side-by-side battles, but even that doesn't really look like it's going to be happening at any point here.
Well, gap increases to 3 seconds now between Josh Boot and Lee Berridge. That is a big extension and a doubling of that margin. And if I'll repeat what I said earlier, Berridge, if I was him, really should be into the pit lane. Maybe it was down to one of those LMP3s that made its way past. I'm not entirely sure what it was down to, but at the moment, Boot is just slipping away further. There are the track conditions out there this evening. 26 down on the circuit, 8:30 in the evening. It's going to be about 9 by the time we finish. It's perfect sunset conditions here for the final half an hour of the season.
Very picturesque indeed here at Daytona for our finale of the World Sportscar series. It's been good fun throughout this season, and some trials and tribulations for many of the teams and drivers, but it all ends in about 24 minutes time once that checkered flag deploys for the final time of the season, and we sort out our order and get our champions. But for now, currently at the moment, at least in our LMP, or rather our LMP3 Pro category, that is still pretty sealed up, isn't it? Jürgen Frank doesn't even need to get the race win here. He can fall quite significantly back through the field and still not be concerned about the situation there. So he's still going to be pressured potentially at the end here for Adam State, depending on how these final stops play out.
There could be pressure here, but that gap has opened quite significantly. Ben Gregory is now into the pit lane as well, by the way, here. So the LMP3 AM Championship leader and race leader also makes his way onto pit road, but is Boumaister able to get anywhere near him? That's the real question here, and the answer so far has been no. In fact, 3 of the 4 race leaders were the championship leaders going into today's race. That says all you need to know about the season, really. The fact that we've had some very dominant drives from some of these drivers, like Jürgen Frank, for example, Eric Grove as well. 2 of the most dominant drivers in this series this season.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, Daytona, it's the big equalizer, isn't it? With that slipstream, there's not that much you can do in terms of driver skill to go that much quicker than everyone else here. Everyone's much more in an even playing field because of that draft, keeping people in contention. You can see this with Shield and Halfredson here at the moment as well. But Gregory, he's out behind Matt Mafakwa, but of course, you know, he doesn't have to worry about fuel to the end now. Just Gregory, Mafakwa still has to come down in. So it's a bit annoying that he's come out behind Mafakwa, but at the end of the day, he's going to be in clear air relatively shortly.
He will be. Halfredson gets down the inside of Shield. Well, that is a surprise. Wasn't expecting to see that, but a big move down the inside there on Shield, and through goes Michael Halfredson. Well, that is a bit of a surprise. 4 seconds now, the gap between first and second in AM, by the way, in GT4. Josh Boots still can't get that fastest lap, though.
What's happened to State? He's lost 5 seconds, 6 seconds in the last couple of moments.
True, yeah. He must have gone at least at turn 1 or the International Horseshoe, because you're right, he's now 8 seconds behind. Is that Hyder behind him as well? It is. So all of a sudden, he's gone from fighting for the win to holding on to second. We'll find out why for you in a couple of moments' time. Here we go with a replay. It's out of turn 1 where he's starting to slip back, but we already saw that with Jürgen Frank putting the pace on, and Adam State just wasn't able to live with it into the International Horseshoe, and
does he have damage on the
suddenly
front
lost. Does it look like damage?
No. I thought it just maybe it was a funny little angle there, but I saw damage, but no, it's fine. Just having a look through the bus stop there, it doesn't seem like there's major issues, but he's still hemorrhaging time at the moment. Is it a fuel issue? Maybe he's trying to hypermile it?
Huh. Well, confusing, I think, is the only explanation, the only descriptive word I can use to describe that, really. Confusing will have to be the one, because we can't really work that out. 9 seconds now, he's continuing to lose time. It may be damage, because Nicholas Hyder closed up to him very quickly there, and now he's down the inside, although that will be very scary for State, and Hyder maybe realising that himself and backing out of it.
Yeah, there is a state that car is not as performant as it used to be. The other thing I was thinking about was slow down penalty through bus stop potentially. That would have lost a bit of time, but not 9 seconds worth.
Well, he was a second or 2 behind, but still 7 seconds is quite heavy to lose for a slowdown. There's Wilkins in the pit lane, by the way, for Osborne. He was fighting with Jack Wilkins earlier. That's all good. Stay just ahead of Hyder then. Well, can't really work out why he's lost time, but he's continuing to lose. It was 8 seconds when we first noticed it. It's now 9.5.
Interesting. This is really interesting, and I can't quite see exactly where that might have occurred there for Adam State. It's really big issue for him. And look at him, he's just being hunted down now by Hyder.
And he's very close behind his side. Well, is he pushing him along here? There's another half-second lost on the straight. I reckon there is damage here, maybe.
So.
Because he's losing a lot of time, although it's not, although I can't really see any. It's getting dark now, so it's a bit difficult to see anyway, but I can't see anything that might be wrong with that car, but something is not quite right. It just doesn't look right. And the amount of time he's losing doesn't look right either. Here goes Hyder. That's unusual as well for someone to be alongside already around NASCAR 3 and 4. Hyder will now go through. State is so slow in a straight line. He's actually able to tuck back into the slipstream of Hyder again, who lifts off dramatically into turn 1.
Yeah, I have no idea what has happened here to Adam State. He lost a lot of time starting on lap 40. He's got back, within about half a second of what the times he was usually doing. But yeah, that is a really weird one. Nathan Moore, by the way, has come down on towards the pit lane for his final stop. I think State, you probably want to come down in sooner rather than later if you do have damage, and just try and maybe get a couple of seconds of repairs. Every little helps in that sense. But yeah, this is not great. And we have our GT leaders coming down in.
GT4 Pro, this is the moment now. It's Grove who's in first in the Aston Martin, then Shield who's up on the Jackson. Grove's gone. Grove has gone. Shield is still there. Haflidersen's still gone as well, and Shield is taking ages. Haflidersen has gone into second place, although he's quite a long way behind Grove. Shield has lost over 10 seconds in the box.
Yeah, absolutely. Did he take tyres and the other guys did not, potentially? Because we are in that window. Yes, they take fuel and tyres at the same time. However, they're such small tanks that you potentially, if you're only having to splash and dash it for just below 20 minutes, then you might be able to get away with not taking the maximum tyres. That potentially might be what has happened there. Yeah, it was 20 seconds stop there for Erico, 31 for Andy Shield.
Looked like that was the reason. Shield was up on the Jackson, he was changing tyres. Is that really going to affect him at Daytona? Well, we'll find out, but Matthew Crisp has got ahead of him now, so Shield may well have thrown that one away slightly. Now, all of a sudden, Adam State has got a bit of pace about him now that he's in the slipstream of Hyder. Still very confused about this, although, to be fair, we might be looking too much into this. Jürgen Frank may well just be turning the speed on and have more than 12 seconds worth of a lead as a result. This is another replay of Adam State in towards turn 1, with Jürgen Frank not that far in front. He's aggressive on the way in, but nothing wrong yet.
Yeah, I'll just let this one run through, because well, we'll bring it back. Oh, that was why. That was why. Big spin coming through the international horseshoe there, trying to get back going. No damage that I could see. He didn't hit anything at least, but that was a big loop. But that really doesn't explain why he was so slow in the subsequent laps. I mean, it can't just have been overheated tyres from the spin, right? Unless he's had another one here at the second horseshoe, but it doesn't seem like it's the case.
No, I think Jürgen Frank was just quicker after that spin, really. State was maybe a little bit out of the rhythm and had to see a little bit of that will have been maybe overheated tyres, although it's really not very warm. So there we are. Berridge and Boot are into the pit lane as well. Josh Boot goes quite a long time before Berridge as well, even though it was a second shorter in the lane for the BMW, or on the apron that is, for the BMW. It loses time nevertheless, as with 15 minutes to go, Jürgen Frank makes his final pit stop of the season and does so with a very comfortable advantage over the rest of the field.
Yeah, he's going to bring it down, and then should, touch wood, be an easy drive for him until the end of the very race now. I hope I'm not giving him the curse, so to speak, as the other top LMP Pro drivers decide to head their way in. Adam State's going to drive it in hard. Hopefully he doesn't overshoot his spot. No, he just gets himself stopped there just fine. But Jürgen Frank already on his way out. 14.3 second stop, and should be plain sailing until the end and a championship win.
Out of the pit lane goes Frank on his way to a title with quarter of an hour to go. He's been so dominant so far in this season. Actually took the maximum 45 points at Spa, including the race win, the fastest lap and the pole position. something he's not been able to achieve all season long as of yet, but managed it 3 weeks ago at Spa. And there is the gap, 12.4 as he makes his way out onto the circuit again. And Eric Grove's got quite a gap as well. 5 seconds is not a gap I was expecting to see. Even if he did have a shorter pit stop than Haflidsson, it was nearly 3 seconds shorter. Now, I think, to be honest, not to be too harsh, I think Haflidsson has overestimated how many laps they're doing to the end here, and Grove has got it more right than he has. Haflidsson's got a few laps of safety in there.
I mean, you want to sometimes err on the side of caution, don't you? Because I've seen it so many times here at Daytona. We get an extra lap that people weren't expecting, and then all of a sudden have catastrophic fuel issues for a good few people in the field. So, but yeah, I think that much extra fuel is probably overdoing it just a bit.
Exactly. So, Josh Boot has come out in the lead in GT4 AM. There is the gap in LMP3 AM, by the way. 25 seconds between Gregory and Boyminster. There, off the road, is the 91 Porsche again. Jack Osborne and Richard Simner will close in as a result of this as well. Now, all of this helps Josh Boot. If these two Cayman start to fight, Josh Boot can gain places to possibly take this title on the road. There goes Simner straight through into what is 5th place in the pro standings right now. But Josh Boot is going to close in even further. He still needs either the fastest lap or he needs a place or two more. And there is the other Porsche in the background. There is the blue, white and black of Josh Boot. On board we go with him now. There are the positions that could win him a title.
1.2, it's on the very, very edge of the slipstream here. It's 1.3 now, so he's not quite getting it from this range. Not quite. I mean, there's maybe a little bit of bunt drafting, or not quite actually, between Osborne and Smith. But Boot just outside the slipstream range here. But this is going to help him quite a lot. If they're threatening to go side by side towards the bus stop, both of them have compromised lines at this point. This means Boot will gain a bunch of time, and he does. He's less than a second behind Smith now. That was a bad decision by the both of them to do that.
And now Smith is going to be far too close in towards the NASCAR turns. He's going to go so high up on the banking, he'll swing back low again, using gravity a little bit to help him, but he's done it a bit too early because he's had to duck out again on the banking and go uphill to do it. The BMW will pull alongside and get through into 6th place, and Josh Boot is right here now as well, in the slipstream. Into turn 1 they go. The two cars in front absolutely on the ragged edge of braking. Into turn 1, Osborne with the inside will get the place, and Josh Boot knows the situation. He's 2 points behind the championship at the moment. Lee Berridge currently holding on to the lead, 7 seconds back, can do nothing about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Berridge is just hoping that Boot doesn't get through on these guys. Of course, you know, we can't 100% confirm championship even if he does get through, because there's so many factors that we have to consider with the amount of penalty points they might have gotten. You know, if there's one penalty point being had, then that might swing the difference. But yeah, this is epic right now. Osborne and Smith, their battling has brought Boot back into this, and potentially has brought Boot back into the conversation of a title.
Wow, what drama here at the end for GT4 AM on a day where most of the championships have been fairly settled, despite the promise at the start of the day. Particularly the likes of Ben Gregory has taken this race by the scruff of the neck, and he's taken that title without too many problems. Josh Boot, though, has made this hard for himself. An incident earlier on in the race has given him a big problem, and now he's got side-by-side in front of him. Round the outside goes Smith into 6th place in the pro standings, with Osborne now 7th. But what can Boot do? He didn't really get a great run off of the bus stop chicane there. He doesn't know whether to follow Osborne up the banking or whether to just stay down low. In the end, he'll stay on the double yellows. Now we'll see if he can get any closer into turn 1. Does he sit back and wait like he did 1 lap ago, or does he go for this? Oh, dear me! Down the inside and below the yellow line. That's not going to be looked on too kindly from Osborne, as backing out of it there is Josh Boot, and probably sensible as well. Not sure whether that's going to be looked on kindly. There's contact as well. Smith goes around at the hands of Josh Boot.
Absolutely. I think Smith just sort of cut down there. I think he was starting to lose control before contact was even made there, so that might have saved Boot in terms of Stewart's action. We'll take another look at it here in a couple of seconds, but what won't help is a potential 4x from that might push him into a penalty point.
What certainly hasn't helped is the fact that Lee Berridge has also got through on Smith as a result. So Boot has gained 2 places, but so has Berridge. Here's the pass again. It's Osborne down below the yellow line. And in the end, Smith, in my opinion, well, does he take his racing line or does he get hit there by Boot? That's the question that will have to be answered by race control, no doubt. Boot backs out of this, but does he get a bit excited later on the brakes at the end? Well, maybe. Smith was a bit wide, but Boot may be well, that's a difficult one to call, really.
It is, because you could see that just for the last second or so, you saw Smith's Chris Smith's back end started to break away. So I think he was already starting to develop a slide before that contact was made, and Boot just helped him around in a sense. But that's going to be a very, very tough one for the stewards to decide there. Well,
and it may well decide the championship as well, although Boot still needs something else from this race. Did any of his slipstream laps give him a faster lap time? No. And this latest lap time won't be quick enough either, because there was contact within it, of course, and that battle as well. This is the fight for second going on further behind. Jürgen Frank's being caught by these two. Gap's 9 seconds. Wonder whether he's lifting off or just taking things easy, you would imagine. As there goes Boot down the inside. So he's through on Osborne, and now he's tied up the championship with Lee Berridge. Now we don't know who really is ahead, because the penalty points are still to be applied, and of course we don't know any stewards' decisions. We don't know the tiebreaker either. What a remarkable situation we have at the end of this championship.
I think it's the curse of me being in the commentary booth, to be honest, because every single championship finale it feels like I've commentated on, it's come down to some ridiculous situation with countbacks and being 1 point in it and things like that. So I'm sorry, guys, but there we go. But 7.5 minutes left to go in this one. And, well, I think Boots, he's already got a second advantage over Osborne here, so he's making this look rather convincing at the moment. It's 4.3 up to Simner, which, unless Simner has problems, is not possible inside of 7 minutes. We do have battles to look at, though. It's Adam State and Nicholas Hyder for P2. Of course, they've been largely bump drafting, trying to at least have a last gasp attempt getting up to Jürgen Frank, but I think they might have to try and scat for P2 and then amongst themselves.
It won't be bump drafting anymore. It's going to be a battle for real this time. 9 seconds between themselves and Jürgen Frank, and Hyder goes very wide there at the exit of the bus stop, almost as if he was going to try and take a slowdown penalty, but he doesn't have one clearly. He'll have the slipstream of Adam State as well. Just close in on the way towards the straight. 6.5 minutes remaining, probably means 5 to go for these guys. Well, maybe 4 actually. Lap times are fairly long around here, 1 minute 40s or so. Maybe 4 laps to go, but we'll wait and see. State skates it into turn 1, a little bit under pressure on the brakes there. Very close behind is Nicholas Hyder. That is a lot of pressure for Adam State to deal with, but no passes made. He might well leave this now for the last lap, or one of the last laps of this race.
Yeah, I mean, that potentially might be the case, but it's all about the timing now. It's making the right decision at the right time if you're one of these drivers, because it's that whole strategic play now in the track positioning for that final lap of the race. Because personally, if I was in this situation, I would want to be the car behind, coming out of the bus stop, getting the run towards the line. Usually, we see the car behind actually pip the other car to the start finish under normal circumstances, but it's not a guarantee. It's not a 100% thing that will happen. It depends on getting that excellent timed run through the bus stop where you're gaining the slipstream into the entry, but you're not having to lift out to not run into the back of them through the exit. That's the perfect situation. Oh boy.
He cut in front of his teammate there. That could have been worse for Adam State, but get away with it. And Hyde up there will certainly have got a better run. Again, he swings high up into the banking. Seems like he's just trying not to catch State so quickly at the moment. And then maybe just use a bit of gravity at the end there. That's what you get from the higher line. He's not choosing to take the slipstream at all here. There's definitely some mind games or something going on between these two, because this is not a usual battle at the moment. Hyder is moving around all over the place in the back of, or in the mirrors, I should say, of Adam State's car.
Yeah, I think he's playing the game. He's playing the game. He wants to stay behind here in second place until the last moment. That's the plan of action here. The issue is will Adam State let him? Because he could slow the pace down quite a lot as well. And you have potentially, if these guys slow down so much because they don't want to overtake each other, then Nathan Moore might be back in the picture from 4.6 back. It will be quite a drastic slowdown for that to happen, but I've seen weirder things in races like this where you have the whole situation of not wanting to be leading onto the white flag.
Yeah, are they both going to be sort of lifting off, braking even, to try and let the other through? What a situation that may turn out to be, if indeed we get it with 4 minutes remaining. Andy Schill just got through on Michael Flitterson there, or was battling with him as well, and maybe he did put new tyres on. He's just feeling the effects of those right now. A 52.3 on that last lap was very quick. Eric Grove does a 52.0. Any hopes of a fastest lap now for Josh Boot are surely out the window.
Yeah, unless it's a miracle lap with a slipstream of a bit of traffic, that is literally the only way he would be able to get through. And even then, it's up against Andy Shield going quick on the fast tyres, Grove as the leader out front as well. It's not looking like a great situation there for Boots. It was a big shame because we had that optimistic moment for him, and then it got dashed rather quickly. It's quite the roller coaster race for him.
3 minutes to go. It's not quite over just yet. Here is the battle for fourth place third and fourth in GT4 Pro. Matthew Crisp is the one right in behind here with Havlidson as well, and Andy Shield. They're not going to catch Eric Grove. That gap now nearly 11 seconds at the front of GT4. Is this going to be the second last lap for Jürgen Frank? It may well be. Adam State, though, has put some time in between himself and Nicholas Hyder. It's looking like he will hold on to second.
Car not quite wanting to get its nose in there to the second horseshoe, but not a big issue for Adam State there. Had to have a second stab at it, shall we say, of getting that car turned in, but it's completely fine now. 1.8 seconds back to Hyder. That's broken the slipstream from back there. We'll get the confirmation as they head on to the banking. Of course, 1.9 seconds now between the two of them, and the gap is stabilizing out, shall we say, between the two. So this is looking very, very good here for State. Of course, what could have been as far as the race lead is concerned. If he didn't have that little spin coming through the international horseshoe, that lost him a good deal of time, and I think he got caught out in traffic at the back end of the lap as well. That certainly didn't help, but we could have been having a grandstand finish for the race lead by now, but unfortunately that's just what happens sometimes.
It is. Has Jürgen Frank started a new lap just yet or not? No, so I'm going to presume this is going to be the last lap that he's just begun now, and I think he slowed down ever so slightly to make sure that it is actually. A 1:42 is quite slow by his standards. Well, to be fair, it's only 7 tenths slower than his best lap of the race so far, but even so, he wants to make absolutely sure, and he's going to take this as a lap of honour, if you like, for his championship. What a dominant season it's been from him. His drop round for the first 5 rounds was a whopping 35 points. They took 35 points away from his total score, and still he's not going to have anyone within 30 of him.
Yeah, incredible performance from Jürgen Frank this season. Just 54 seconds before that time expires. We do have to keep an eye on this battle for the final 2 podium spots in the GT Pros as well, because that is still in a bit of limbo here at the moment between the 3 of them. Of course, the 2 teammates of Halverton and Chris from that Alcantech side, so the AM Racing Team Alcantech side. We'll see how it works out between the 2 of them there, but we'll just keep this look on Jürgen Frank. He's going to deal with a little bit of traffic here coming through the bus stop. Is this going to be the final lap or not? Is this going to be a checkered flag or not? Well, he gets stalled out by the GT car there, but take it away.
It's Paul Smith, by the way. It's the first time we've spoken about him tonight, really, in the race, but Jürgen Frank is already flashing his lights. He knows that this is the last lap of the race. It's the last lap of the season. 9 hours of racing now complete, and the World Sports Car Championship in LMP3 Pro is going to go to Jürgen Frank, who takes yet another race victory in this phenomenal season for the German driver. Victory under the lights of Daytona secures a title-winning season for Jürgen Frank, and in the end it's comfortable over Adam State and Nicholas Heider in LMP3 Pro. It's comfortable for Eric Grove as well, who's going to win the title with a race win here in GT4 Pro. Ben Gregory is not far away from the line either. There is Josh Boot in the background. Who knows what the situation with him is going to be like. Eric Grove flashes his lights and makes his way over the line. He is a race winner at Daytona and a champion of the World Sports Cars Championship as well. Ben Gregory, same will go for him. A comfortable race victory in LMP3 for him, and that is all he deserves at the end of a difficult season. A day where he only came into the final race of the day 6 points ahead of his nearest rival. He's certainly probably doubled that here this evening. Over the line for Ben Gregory, who has a bit of a photo finish with one of his teammates. He will be LMP3 AM champion in the World Sports Car Championship. But further behind, Josh Boot is going to win the race. Lee Berridge is going to come home second in GT4 AM. And so as far as our calculations go, that is going to tie them on points before any penalty points are applied at the end of this round of the championship. And that is what's going to decide the championship after the checkered flag.
Incredible stuff. It was, we'll have to see how things work out in GT4 AM, because of course we've got potentially a steward's decision to factor in with the contacts that Josh Boot had on the back of Smith, and then of course we have any potential penalty points from instant points to consider as well, and actually potentially try and actually I won't rely on that now. They have gone live in session, but due to the way my monitors are set up, they're not exactly aligned. So I'll let you do that, Ewan, if you are connected up to the session. It might give us a good idea of what the penalty points are looking like. But before we move on to that, I imagine we should probably head over and go over our race results.
We certainly will. I'm not connected to the session, by the way. I just watched the feed that everyone at home is, so I can't help you there. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, a bit of appreciation, by the way, shown between Lee Berridge and Josh Boot there, which was nice to see. Appreciation between two great drivers who have battled such a great championship here this season. Let's take a look at the race results, though. At the end of an hour and a half of racing at Daytona, it is Jürgen Frank who takes the race win by 7.5 seconds ahead of Adam State. Nicholas Heider made a mistake with a few laps to go, and he will finish third. And Nathan Moore, who didn't really have the pace today. Daniel Sesley finishes fifth ahead of Thomas King. Then the first of the LMP3 AMs, the new champion Ben Gregory is ahead of Mac Mafakwa and Yus Bumeister there, his closest rivals in the championship as it turned out. Toby Ward rounded out the top 10. 11th and 12th was the rest of the LMP3 field. It was John Roberts and Denise Pope, both AM drivers who would round off the LMP3s, who finished, unfortunately, a lap down, the both of them. Further back, Eric Grove was a race winner in GT4 Pro again, ahead of Andy Shield and Michael Hafliderson joining him on the podium. His teammate Matthew Crisp would be fourth, ahead of Richard Simner, who Josh Boot couldn't quite catch. Jack Osborne finishes 19th ahead of Lee Berridge, who with 20th may be a GT4 AM champion at the end of today. But as we mentioned, it basically comes down to incident points. Christopher Smith finished 21st ahead of Evangelos Natapas, who unfortunately was not really involved in that race leading fight, and he probably could have been if he hadn't have had that spin on the exit of the pit lane for the first time. Jack Wilkins finished 23rd ahead of RaceSpot's own Paul Smith. Howard Hassan, Caleb Riddick and Haflider Hansen all got to the end. Mark Cullicutt was quite a long way back at the end, and that's a shame for him as a championship contender. Sophia Ridpath retired at the latter portion of the first stint, and so did Christoph Weitz, along with a few others. Adam Locke, Silas Krog-Brolick, Philip Bjork and Paul Joseph Clist never made the start of the race. So there you have it. There are your results from tonight's racing. We will now bring in Jürgen Frank to have a bit of a chat with him to round off the LMP3 Pro standings before we get news in from other categories up and down the field. We'll get that to you before we leave you tonight. But Jürgen, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Wanted to chat to you first because you're a race winner once again in this series and you're a champion now as well. How does it feel now that the season is complete?
Yeah, good evening. That feels very good. But it was an intense race today. I had a huge gap in the championship, but it was never sure today because today is no drop week, and it was so dangerous also in the start. And Adam State was he was in a good state today. It was he was really fast. He was fast in the corners. I was fast on the straights. And I had a little gap in the first stint, but then I hit traffic twice in the bus stop, and there he was again. And he also saved fuel, and so he could jump me at first. In the end, I don't know what happened to him. I just saw him spinning or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly. You gapped him by a second and then unfortunately had a spin at the International Horseshoe. But you mentioned it there. This, of course, not a round that you can take as a drop round for the finale, which makes things interesting. Did that make you a little bit more nervous before this round than maybe you were for the previous ones where you knew you had a strong drop round and it didn't realistically matter if you had a particularly bad round?
Yeah, of course you get nervous here a little bit, at least, because the final races are always special. Other series, I had a look at the luck sometimes in the final race, and here it could have been the opposite. So the final races, you never know what happens.
Absolutely, but it's turned out well for you. Congratulations, Jürgen, on becoming the champion in the LMP3 part of this series. As we say, congratulations. Thanks for coming to chat to us as well after each and every round pretty much of this season, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much, and also thanks to my teammate Niklas Heide, who did a great job. And I hope to see you soon again. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. Jürgen Frank, race winner and champion, of course, of the World Sportscar Championship this season. And before we push on with any more interviews, Connery, we've got news from the pit lane about incident points and the like from that race.
Yeah, from what I can see, Joshua Boots has 11 incident points. That means he's gone over 10, and he'll get 1 penalty point as a result of that. Of course, that is pending any steerage review from the incident that we had as well, so there might be more penalties with regards to that. But if that is true, and if he gets the 1 point penalty for that instant point infringement, then it is confirmed, potentially, at least by my numbers, and pending steerage review, that Berridge is the champion in GT4 AM.
And that is sort of the single point that separates them provisionally as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. But that provisionally, that is the point that separates them. And what a way to end the season as well. Unfortunately for Boot, of course, but fortunately for Lee Berridge in some ways as well. Let's push on with some more interviews and stay in the LMP3 category though, because Jürgen Frank's teammate Niklas Heider also joins us. Niklas, welcome in. Good to have you with us. You couldn't quite get second in the end there ahead of Adam State. Just tell us about that battle towards the end.
Yeah, I was miscalculating a bit, so I wanted to have the fastest lap because it was important for the team championship, but I couldn't get it because of the traffic, and then I also lost about 1 second in the bus stop because of a GT4, and then, I lost him too. So quite bad for me, but I hope equal points now for the team championship. Let's see who wins now.
Yeah, well, we will do. How has the season been for the team overall? I know you mentioned the team's championship being a goal overall. You should have finished second in the drivers' standings as well, for what that's worth to you in LMP3 Pro. But what has the season been like for SimRC generally?
Yeah, it was quite impressive, I think, because we improved quite a lot from the first race and then found a good baseline setup overall for low downforce tracks. And then we had a quite good run on at least half of the tracks. Yeah.
And it's turned out very well for you guys at SimRC. Congratulations on another podium here tonight, Nicholas, and of course second place in the driver standings as well. And thanks for coming to chat to us at the end of tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nicholas Hyder there, joining us from SimRC, and after his third place finish here tonight in the race. Speaking of third place finishes, I'm going to jump to GT4 Pro next, and Michael Flidderson. I know Andy Shields waiting for us there, but I'm going to bring him in last and have a roundup with him. But first of all, to Michael Flidderson, welcome in, Michael. Good to have you with us again. Finishing on the podium, couldn't quite get second out of Andy there, but just about hanging on to your podium, which you could have lost to your teammate, of course, at the end as well. Tell us about those final few laps in that last stint.
I can tell you it was really stressful. So what Andy did, he took tires by mistake, and that's why I lost so much. But that's also why I gained so much on me. I was just taking it really cautious because I was fighting for P3 in the totals. So I was more focused on that than actually getting P2 in the race, because I knew that even if Andy finished ahead of me, I would be fine on points. And Chris Pican also knew that, and was kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna stay back. I'm not gonna try to like destroy your title fight or your podium fight. So it was really reassuring, especially since Andy had such pace in the end there.
And in the end, you're obviously going to run pretty close in the championship. In the Eric Grove is, of course, going to take that one. And I think you said to us a few weeks ago that maybe that was a goal that was out of reach. But what is your thoughts sort of overall on this season and how it's been?
I mean, it's been really fun. Even though I've had some really bad rounds, like Watkins, where I got taken out pretty early, and Le Mans per se, where I think I could have won, but I accidentally got spun out. But it's been a really good season. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I haven't driven GT4 before, so it was really nice. So I hope I can come back next season and maybe fight Eric for the title, but it's going to be hard.
Well, we hope to see you back again, of course, Michael. Thanks very much for coming to chat to us after so many of the rounds this season, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thanks very much, Michael Ferguson there from third in GT4 Pro. I know I said I'd go to Andy Shield next, but we've got a couple more champions in waiting in the book. We've got a lot of people, haven't we? Goodness me! So we'll quickly get to the champions with a couple of questions. I've interrupted their conversation.
Oh, sorry.
Benjamin Gregory joins us. Welcome in. Good to have you with us. Sorry for interrupting your conversation, but how are you feeling after that race? You're now, of course, an LMP3 champion in this series.
Yeah, provisional. I would like to make those count because that was a hell of a jump start I accidentally did. Yeah. On it, I'm kind of I didn't expect it, honestly, after the first round when I stuffed it into the wall at turn 2. It was I'm very happy about that. Yeah.
Well, we did notice you, or someone jump starting. I didn't realise it was you, but I'm sure you'll still be fine anyway. But did that sort of hang over your head a little bit over the course of the remainder of the race, sort of worrying about how many points you were going to potentially lose after a stewards decision or something?
A little bit. It was it was more of a time penalty. I was wondering what it's going to end up being, because I was like, oh God, is it 10 seconds? Is it 30 seconds? I need to build time. Then when I heard Mac got turned in the first, Mac, it was a bit more of a long shot anyway, but he was so fast. But when I heard he got turned, he had a crash at start. I was like, okay, that's one slightly less problem. Joost then was so consistent and kept his times up, but I was able to just about pull away enough times, and then I almost crashed. So it was a bit touch and go, but hopefully, fingers crossed, that sealed it.
An eventful race, but hopefully a successful one for yourself. I think it will end up being a successful one. Congratulations on it, and we'll be able to properly congratulate you afterwards. But thanks for coming to chat to us, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good win for Group Virage, I guess.
Yes. There we go, Benjamin Gregory joining us at the end of the race here at Daytona. The other champion we've still not heard from, of course, is Lee Berridge, and we move to him now as well. Welcome in, Lee. Good to have you with us. As far as our maths goes, you've won the championship by a singular point. However, it's difficult to work out, as I'm sure you could appreciate. How much were you aware of the situation going on the road at the time and all of the permutations that every position held for you and Josh Boot?
Oh, well, hi guys. First time I've had a chat with you. Yeah, someone let me know with about 10 laps to go that obviously Josh took 6th place. I was in 8th. And that put us level on points. And I knew that having had a win for him, I knew he was going to win it at that point. But what I didn't know was how many incident points he'd had. So counting 11, he gets 1 penalty point and he lost out on the fastest lap. So he doesn't regain it on that. So how I took it, but I think he thoroughly is a deserved winner, probably more so over me. Tonight's performance from Josh was just absolutely sensational. I think he was in 18th position on lap 1, having spun, or I think he got tapped. And to bring it back like that, I was watching the time closing, just thinking, how is he doing this? And then I considered that, you know what, he's going to burn more fuel than me doing what he's doing, and I was fuel saving. And then he come in the pits on the same lap as me, and I thought, I can't believe it. How's this guy doing this? He's a wizard. So I think on that, he probably deserves it more than me. But do you know what? A win's a win. I'm going to take it.
You're being very modest, but congratulations on what we think is going to be a GT4 AM title for you here tonight, and a good race generally for yourself as well to finish 2nd in class. Congratulations on that, Lee, and thanks so much for coming to chat to us.
Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you all next season.
Thanks very much, Lee Berridge, champion of the GT4 AM standings, as we think. At the end of that season. Let's stay in GT4 for the moment and go to Richard Simner, who was a championship contender at the start of the day, finished in 5th place at the end. Welcome in, Richard. Good to have you with us as well. Top 5 for you today wasn't to be with the championship, but it would have been very difficult to beat Eric Grove nevertheless. Is that sort of how you read the situation going into this one as well?
Oh, good evening. Yeah, no, I totally just didn't want to lose 2nd, if I'm honest. I mean, a little bit sort of getting nosebleeds being that high up the championship, if I'm honest with you. Yeah, with Eric just driving how he does, I don't think realistically there's any chance of getting ahead of him. I think earlier in the season, I just played it a bit safer, got some good results, and found myself very high up there at the beginning. Yeah, I mean, I did the maths before. I knew like if Michael was first, I sort of had to make sure I finished 7th, and then I was in 7th, and I saw Michael was hustling for the lead, and I was a bit nervous. But yeah, I just sort of just did my thing, did the whole fuel save strategy, just make sure it's a nice quick pit stop at the end, and it kept me ahead of the people behind. And yeah, I mean, Josh was just lightning quick, absolutely lightning quick behind, and I just kept looking at the relative thinking, yeah, he's definitely going to catch me at the end. And then I was, again, trying to, as best I could, do the mathematics on it.
Well, it still ended up in a 2nd place for you, I guess, at the end, and a top 5 on the day as well. Congratulations on that tonight, Richard, and thanks so much for coming to chat to us as well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Richard Simner, for 5th place, in today's race. And finally, one last chat now with Andy Shield, of course, who was up there in GT4 as well. 2nd place, just about here today. And of course, we'll bring you in at the end, Andy, for a bit of a roundup as a whole as well. First of all, on your own race, though, holding on to 2nd, what were those final laps like, that final stint with a couple of cars trying to take your position away at the end?
Yeah, I made the rookie error of not deselecting the tyres for the 2nd pit stop, so I only realised when I wasn't being dropped off the jacks and managed to untick one of the tyres. I think it was the back left, so I was a bit concerned about it being a bit of a staggered car for the first few laps, but once I was up to speed, the front tyres felt great, and I just managed to put some laps together and catch Michael up towards the end.
Well, it was an exciting battle towards the end, and I wanted to talk sort of more broadly about the series and how it's been as well at the end of the season. We've now been racing for 9 hours, 6 rounds of great racing as well in the World Sports Car Championship. You're one of those behind the scenes that does a lot of running of the series, of course. How's it been from that side of things generally?
As series go, this has probably been one of the most fun series that we've actually hosted. The overriding feedback is that people are really enjoying it. Just the car classes really work well together. We've got 2 distinct groups of drivers, both of which have been really positive with their feedback, and we're looking forward to making a few subtle tweaks to the championship for 2024, and maybe extending out the rounds, maybe another 1 or 2 to add on to the end, but we'll see.
We certainly will. Look forward to it. Andy, congratulations on 2nd place on the road tonight and the running of the series as a whole, and we'll see you in 2024.
Great stuff. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Andy Shield there. 2nd place in GT4 Pro, of course, and a big part of the running of things behind the scenes at World Sim Racing as well. That's just about going to do it for us here at RaceSpotTV. We're pretty much out of time here as we get towards 10 p.m. here in UK. It's about time for us to say goodnight, Connery, but it's been a great finale, thoroughly enjoyable here at Daytona, and a 9-hour season, 6-round season comes to an end with such drama in that final half hour.
Yeah, it absolutely did, and we had a great finish off to the season. It seems like, from what Andy said, that the drivers were enjoying it. We were certainly enjoying it in the commentary booth. Hopefully you were enjoying it viewing from home as well, and let's hope we get another season of this, because that was really good racing out there from pretty much everyone involved, and let's hope that this series goes from strength to strength.
We certainly do. Thanks very much to everyone who's been tuned in tonight, and indeed over the course of the whole season as well. It's been great to have you along here on RaceSpotTV. For now, though, until 2024 here for the World Sports Car Championship, it's goodbye from myself, Ewan O'Leary, Connery Maddock alongside me. We will see you in 2024.